Everyone around me has the most perfect life. They have their perfect little family, the perfect friends, even the perfect boyfriend or girlfriend. What do I get? A life full of nothing but unhappiness and tragedy? Everything just goes wrong no matter what I do. I cannot even have the perfect moment for more than less than a minute. I'm lucky if I ever get that. I am starting to think that I am nothing but a teenager full of nothing but bad luck. All my friends and family tell me, oh, it just happens to happen, it will pass. Or they say, everything just happens for a reason. You will get your time in the spotlight. When will that ever happen to me? I am starting to think never. My name is Desdemona Thana. When I got older, I did research on my name. Thana means death. Desdemona means of the devil. I honestly don't know where my parents got my name. I truly believe they had no clue that both names meant death or something evil. My mom's name before she met my father was Candace Astle. My dad's name was John Coleman. I honestly have no clue on earth what made my parents create the last name Thana when they got married. I just tell myself that they were drunk or high big time during this. Candace Astley actually was not born with a name. Her mom died at birth and no one knew who her father was. Her mother never let anyone know she was pregnant with her till the last month. So I have no clue what my mother's true family was like, or anything about the family history on her side. My mother was adopted at birth, needless to say. Eddie and Addison Astle were the ones that adopted her. They could not have kids of their own no matter how hard they tried. Candace was their only child. They spoiled her big time. I was told that she always got what she wanted in life no matter what. She always made sure she got her way at any age in life. My mother was the smartest one in her class all throughout school. She was also the snootiest one of all, sadly. She was an artist from the beginning, always winning at any art contest starting all the way back in kindergarten. She was an athlete as well, always the reason her team never missed going to state or nationals every year. I do know that her adopted parents were rich. That is all I do know about them. My mother never talked about my grandparents on her side. John Coleman did have both of his parents till he was 6. He was always getting into trouble. Managed to also always be the top of his class every year starting at a young age. At the same time, he was the one that started the trouble in all of his classes. He managed to be able to start living on his own by the time he was 13. Somehow my father always had the money to pay his bills on his own, even though he was not quite old enough to legally have a job. John never would tell me how he managed life on his own at a young age. I do have my suspicions though. By the time he was 16 and old enough to actually get a true job, he had a nice house and it was paid off as well. I still to this day wondered how he managed that. Also at that age, I do know he started getting caught stealing and setting fires, acquiring the title of arsonist at a young age. The fires were mainly aimed toward people he loved and cared about, people who never returned his love but turned their backs on him. He also targeted public city property, like City Hall, the park, the school, police station, and even the fire station, anything for attention. By the time John was 18, he had already been to jail countless times, and even a few times in prison, but always managed to get out of doing no more than 2 or 3 weeks of his time. John Coleman was known for barely showing up to his classes. I have no clue how he was passed on to the next grade. I assume he paid his teachers to pass him. I mean, he did have his own place to live and was paying his own bills by the time he was a teenager. My parents met when they were 13. I guess when my dad was doing odd jobs for my grandparents, or at least that is what my mother told me. She was always really vague on how they really met. Something tells me that there was more to the story though. They were off and on again all through school as high school kids will do. It wasn't until Candace started college that they started dating and became a couple. She was going to college to be an accountant. She never did finish though. I was surprised that she did not have my grandparents, Eddie and Addison Astley, or my father pay her way to finishing and getting her degree. I guess it wasn't all that important to her. That was a big shock to me. When my mother was almost finished with her first year of college, she announced to my father and her parents that she was pregnant with me. My grandparents were very supportive, even though they wished she would go ahead and finish college. My father took off and left her pregnant and alone. He showed back up 3 months before I was born, expecting to just drop back into her life and become a father. She made sure he knew she was not at all impressed that he left her to go through this alone, and he paid for it for the rest of their time together. When I was born, my parents were very loving and caring, my grandparents told me. They thought because of me that my parents had actually straightened up and grew up to be decent people for once. My mother actually became a famous author 3 months after my arrival. My father was the proud owner of not 1 but 6 different small businesses. He owned a car dealership shop, the town's only grocery store, bakery, and even the most famous bar in town. He made sure he had his hands on every aspect this little town had to offer. He was involved in one business that they would never tell me about. They just called it the franchise whenever I would happen to overhear them talking about it. All that my father would tell me was that he wanted me to take over when I got older. By the time I was 3 years old, my grandparents said that my parents threw everything away and turned to their own ways to make ends meet for me. Why did my parents do that? My grandparents and I will never truly know. All my parents would tell us is that it was not what they dreamed of doing anymore. By the time I was 6 and was 2 weeks away from starting kindergarten, my parents ran off and left me all on my own. So my grandparents, Eddie and Addison Astley, got full custody of me.